Hello there. So I know there hasn't been a whole lot of videos coming in lately, and I had some work I was doing for a market that I had, and before I was going to sell a bunch of stuff, and just because I had quite a bit of work, we just moved also, had a lot of my carvings all in one place at one time. So I decided to do a little video for you guys, show this stuff. One of the reasons is not just, because really want to show my stuff, and most of the stuff just goes nowhere, but definitely a lot of when you're beginning carving, any point, a lot of finding your next project is just getting motivated, or finding you see something in a book or something. For me, it was going through the all the New York City library, finding every single wood carving book, looking through all of them, finding these different types of history you can track down, like boat building and stuff, and then after that, buying vintage books online on eBay and stuff for as cheap as I could to try to find stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that's not on the internet. Certainly there's a lot of stuff on there as well, but you'll see that through my work. And basically, I'd love to show a lot of these old books that I have, but for copyright reasons, I don't really want to do that. So you'll see them hopefully get motivated through some of the work that I've done. Say, hey, that's a little piece. Most of my stuff is really small, done when I didn't own a big bandsaw or anything. So anyway, I'll just kind of go through a bunch of boxes of the stuff that I have. Some really early work up to some more current work. Sometimes some of them that you guys have seen in videos. So anyway, enjoy, and I'll try to get out some more carving videos to you guys soon. All right. Alright, so here we go. The order, the shooting of all this is kind of a mess. Forgot to turn a light on till like halfway through. The order of it's not real great, and the amount of time of the footage isn't real great on each one. So I don't really need to go through all of it. Just kind of wanted to show you guys some of this stuff. I got rid of a lot of the pieces at the fair, so I can't really reshoot it. So we're gonna deal with this footage. These two guys in the middle here, the happy and sad, were supposed to go together, but one of them got like totally messed up, and then they just both look so creepy that whatever. But I enjoy most carvings. You got a little guy there with toothless with a bird on his head. There's a little bear. I did a lot of bears. This is like one of the only ones I have, I think, now. He's got a hot dog there, and I'd fixed him up afterwards. It's where those white spots are. Didn't go back into repainting him, so you'll see a lot of the stuff that I have, I guess, is like wasn't quite finished, maybe. I wasn't quite happy with it. Some of it may look a bit like okay on a video, but there's maybe something wrong with it that like in person it just doesn't quite work. You guys have all seen these guys, or if you haven't, I do have a video on those. I've done a bunch of those throughout my career. My carving, time carving. Did a lot of them in the beginning, and then kind of came back to them to do a video, and I'll probably do a lot more of them. Great little project there. Alright, and then yeah, those guys' teeth are great though, the little happy and sad guys. There's a little army guy. Little chin strap. So this guy was I actually don't remember now. He's either the brother, the guy I carved right before the video, or he's one of my earlier videos. I think he is in the video. There's either footage of him or another guy just like him. And this guy, like, he looks okay, on video. You can see in the front there, he's actually really chewed up, barely done. That spot in the middle is because he's from a 2x4, very early carving. But you can see how, yeah, I'm pointing out to the knot, the pine knot in there. It's almost impossible to carve, but just the gesture of it really works. At the same time, he's like kind of depressing. So again, people don't even like how serious faced my guys look sometimes, so I have like, I don't know, never mind. So we get some more guys out here. These match. You can see why I filmed those together. I've done a lot of fish over time. I'll maybe do a video at some point. This one's kind of fun painted. They're really easy to do from, if you don't have a bandsaw or something, you get a thin piece of wood or a piece that's out of a grab bag, and you can get a fish out of it. If you get some thin piece that's like not even, nobody else would carve on it, maybe some scrap, or like maybe for building like maybe from box building stuff, it just doesn't have to have the same, like a basswood does. If you're having like a thick piece, you don't have to have that, because you're getting through such a thin piece. You can carve through like a tougher wood, or wood that doesn't have normally like great grain. Doing a lot of cross grain stuff. This is a little angel piece I did out of another kind of pine that they'll sell at the at Home Depot or whatever. It's like a clear pine or something, or I forget the names of the other pines. But actually, the wings were separate, and even though I made a little mortise for them, they kept breaking off, and some of that was just because I've moved. Each time I've moved, they've broken off, and then I've re-glued them, and then the mortise either stays in or doesn't. But it's actually a really good design to make a really simple kind of little. I think she could be a great Christmas ornament, kind of deal. Or just even without that, like it's a very basic kind of setup where you can just cut. You can get like these 1x12 or whatever it is, thin pieces of pine at like a Home Depot or whatever kind of store, and you can just kind of get a cheap saw and be able to cut out some shapes and kind of make things like that. Again, that's kind of working within kind of the limits of what you have. So in here I'm pulling out, this is basically what got me into carving, which was, I was like kind of at a real sketchy time in my life, and like just besides my life, just with art in general, had gotten like really like disillusioned with everything. So I started crocheting. Basically, I was like kind of nutty, like crocheting, and that was just like kind of all I could do was just doing knots, right? But there was something to that of like just doing something with my hands. So at some point, I'm like, hey, I think I want to make my crochet hook, and you can see there's a little early spiral. End up making crochet hooks, which you make very easily. I do have a video on how to make them. And then at some point, I just did it with X-Acto knives. There's some out of twig. I have a twig there. And at some point, I started to decorate the backs of them, the back end. And then at some point, they started getting like a little more elaborate. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm wood carving. The one on the left there is a really early piece. You'll see some of these throughout. So a piece like this, which is not super early, but basically like acanthus and design stuff, decorative architecture, which really interested me a lot. And you'll see, I guess, in some still, like, I think FlexCut sells a thing. Well, they'll do a flower. It's still a popular thing. You'll see them in there. You see that one in there in a little bit. This was a piece that was out of or at least compiled out of a book of like an old mirror, some really old furniture. I really love that stuff. Where it's made by hand, and that kind of also transitioned from my drawing. But as far as creating acanthus, it's super hard, and so that also got me into this here, where I started to draw a thing on a block where I was going to carve it out, and then I was like, wait a minute, I just made a stamp. So I kind of finished it and then stamped with it, and it came out really great. So I basically I'd already prepped myself for being a block cutter with real wood, and so I did a lot of that. I did a whole lot of that. I have like a whole Tupperware. I thought I showed it. Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna break it out in a little bit. Anyway, but so that actually I went back to not really X-Acto knives, but there's these. Here, I'm gonna bring the Tupperware out right there. I'll show you a few of these big ass things, which a lot of them are hard to see because this one's easy because it was white at the end, that first one. These are they were all black or whatever, so it's hard to see what's on them. But I got into some really big pieces and elaborate stuff, and then some of them I didn't even use wood. You could use you can use this new stuff. I forget what it's called. Linoleum. That's not what the real stuff is called nowadays, but they just call it linoleum cutting. So anyway, so back to what I was talking about. So what I would use is that the V-tools can work to a certain extent, but you need these details that you need to actually get out with you can get a tighter angle with a knife. And so you basically the scalpels nowadays, you can buy them from I don't know, whatever kind of store. You can probably order them online. You get a new kind of scalpel. They're these handles, and then the blades are what go on. There's new one. You put a new blade on every time,
And so they make really tiny ones that are curved, and it's like maybe 3 millimeters tall. And it's got this tiny little curve, and that's what I could use because all these like these little acanthus and swirly things. I needed a not just tight, but I needed it to swivel. So you need a curved upswept blade for that. So again, that one you can see that one because it's white, and also I maybe didn't use as thick of a paint on it. Some of those got really thick paints on them, so then they get filled up really quickly if I didn't wash them out. So there was that. And then, this is another little thing. It's kind of silly or whatever, but as long as the fish and everything, you do little hearts or something out of flat pieces where you can get somewhere. So here we have a cat. It's just kind of laying down. When you do animals, it's much easier to have them with their legs all together. On the right there, I'm trying to at some point made a decision not to show my turning stuff because I did get into wood turning a lot. I have an old Shopsmith lathe, and it's just a weird little piece that I painted like this old China stuff. I don't even know why, but here's on the left there's a really tiny cottonwood bark guy, and he's barely there, but he's I think one of my better examples of a wood spirit, where they really are barely coming out of the wood, the natural wood state. Here's an example of some guy that never really. He's interesting, for wood carvers and whatnot, but I'm not gonna sell him. I was gonna have his head sticking out of somewhere, and I made him some arms that were gonna be whatever. It was gonna be this crazy thing, have him sticking out maybe a knot. When there's rotted wood, the knot will be gone, so there'll be a hollow spot there, and I could have his head coming out. It would have been really weird and silly, but anyway, there's a lot of pieces like that. Maybe made it close to that spot or not quite to the end. Didn't know what I was really doing. This is another one when I was messing around with skeletons and whatnot. So if you're gonna have separate, this guy's similar to the angel. His arms break off. Again, it's probably mostly because of the moving and me not wrapping him. It's just me throwing him into a thing. I love this guy. I gotta love him. So if you do separate stuff where you're gonna have arms or whatever that are either articulated or just out there, you'd have to have a huge piece of wood to do this. So instead, I have a very small, thin piece where I did his head, body, hat with, and then you have some really small pieces, which these were actually branches that I used that were already kind of that shape. Again, no bandsaw or anything. And not only that, but when you have a branch like that, it'll follow that shape. It'll be much stronger. So this is another, very early piece where I'm doing just weird design stuff. And on these I just kind of start out with maybe draw something a little bit, but because I was learning my cuts, I would go deeper and deeper and just kind of follow whatever would be working with the wood. This was maybe my first, I think, London plane tree carving, sycamore, and got some found wood at some point, and it was just so refreshing. He looks really chewed up, his face, but at the same time, I also like how he looks like he's a very old wood carving. He's actually a little bit scary on video here, and he's actually the nicer of the two. But anyway, here we go. I turned the light on finally so you can see that he's not as chewed up. He actually is much smoother. Back then I used to sand my pieces, so but that was super early on. This skeleton guy is not even that long ago. It was a year or two ago. This bust. Yeah, I was breaking stuff back out because I was could you guys see that without the light? Anyway, so he was a big kind of thing where I was hey, maybe I don't use wood, basswood all the time, and there's all this wood out there that's maybe special and fun to carve, that I don't need to buy in the store. So that there was a lot of early years of going out to parks and collecting wood, collecting too much wood, becoming a hoarder, and you don't know which species you can use at first. You're learning the types of trees, all this other stuff, and you just kind of have to go with it. There's a little funny guy, a little devil guy. He's this was, this again, this natural branch. Each one of his horns and his hats, that's the way they went. But he's actually way too fragile and weird and freaky to sell or anything. But to wood carvers, I think, it's fun, interesting. And I would also say, with this, There's one of the few females that have survived over the years that haven't just thrown away. And you can see with this harsh light how hard it is to do females. Their faces, it's just ridiculously hard. There's a few where I've stayed with, but I don't really have them anymore for one reason or another. This is one where I did like another big piece. This is another London plane, very old. Sat around with some like, tool to get her down to this kind of shape somewhat. And I actually heard that the small part of her body was too small. I tried painting her in the stain. It was early on when I hadn't practiced enough staining, and I messed her up. And that her face is like half painted, and it's a mess. It looks like the Joker. She's like scary. But yeah, it's interesting. At some point, I was thinking I was gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go into wood sculpture, and it's gonna be like much bigger and bigger stuff. And then I'm like buying these tools and stuff, and thinking all this whatever, and I never ended up going that route. I ended up kind of enjoying just I ended up having to pull back because it got away from the craft. When you're getting into these pieces that are getting more and more complex, you have to, you're worrying too much about how it's turning out and all this other stuff instead of just having fun. Like faces are like that in the beginning. I think probably everything is, but eventually you get it down, and then eventually you can kind of have fun with it. And it becomes like automatic, and it becomes more of a craft. This is another guy. It's like he's this is a limb, natural limb. You can see the bark is still on there, and you can see the twisty. It's a hollow spiral stuff. That's a single hollow spiral, and then he's got a double in his hand. If you guys saw one of my last videos with the hollow spiral, so you can use that and stuff. And here's another guy just started to spiral his. I think there was a third that was like this that I sold, maybe even another one. So that's a good design to use for, I don't know what I'm doing here with the camera. Good design to use for found wood is you get that kind of the Y branch, and you do a head on one side and an arm on another. And you can find three, that's great. This is just an example, just stupid little wood project. Really awful at the time. Still use it though. You just put two studs into a piece of wood. This was a found piece, as you can tell. And I'd put like that black decoration on there is from one of those wood stamps that I did. And then just put some, stain over it. And so I still use it for a key holder today. It's real easy, to do that. There's actually like a plywood, so this it looks like horrific, but you don't really notice that until you look at it close. Not to mention this key's hanging over it the whole time. This is a really weird piece. Again, it was kind of early on when I'm like thinking that I'm gonna like do these conceptual pieces or whatever. It's gonna be like an art or whatever. I thought about spinning him at some point. What I should note here is that he's burned, and I did a lot of burning early on for my finishing stuff. The guys who do chainsaw carvings will burn their pieces, and it works really good with certain types of stuff, but you can really ruin some kinds of things. Basically, like if a bear works, because all of them is fur, right, or like a wood spirit, most of them, but the cheeks are like these long places. If they don't match, it's very hard to get the burning to be consistent everywhere. So you really just end up with like a burned piece, and then you kind of have to deal with that. So it is worth trying at some point, especially if you're doing a bear or wood spirit or something. I'm gonna try that. You kind of need like a forceful whatever. So anyway, so what I'm pointing out here is that later, as I get down the technique that I've shown you guys a million times, the old glazing, the antiquing technique, which people have been doing for a long time, but again, for me, it's like figuring that out, how you like that, and then different ways of doing it, and how it works on different pieces of wood and with different pieces. The cottonwood bark piece that I believe is in the video, I think. And then this is a piece of pine that's from like the Oregon Trail or something, not the Oregon Trail, whatever it's called. So you can see it's like a very natural, like had been torn off, and just kind of cut a shape of his hat. I started going after him. What's interesting about him is weird is I actually did like a 3/4 perspective, if you can see there, that he's actually kind of like the way you do a relief thing. Like he's not actually completely three-dimensional. He's actually mildly faux three-dimensional. He's yeah, it just kind of makes him look weird. But I don't know. That's where his corner was, so I was like, I wanted to get his face in there. For some reason, my mind was modeling that, so I just went with them. Anyway, he's been sitting around for years. Haven't finished him off. I just need to put some texture stuff on him. Here's a very large cottonwood spirit. All the cottonwood bark. Yeah, I don't maybe don't say bark sometimes afterwards, but you know, the bark is one thing, and then I've actually carved the wood because I got a bunch in some videos, but all the bark acts differently. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. And let's see here. Here's a little turtle guy, which I don't know if he made it into a video, but there's a turtle video. Okay, the duck. I haven't done a little bird video, which I'm working on. And I know we just talked about this because I just put my hawk out recently. So I haven't turned the duck yet. Am I gonna pick him up here? I went to go get something, apparently. Okay, anyway, so the duck. So if you know at some point maybe you're interested in doing duck decoys, you can do them on whatever level you want. You do it on a tiny little level. You get this little grab bag piece. And basically why he kind of looks fun is that I sanded him until there wasn't any crevices anymore, and then you can layer up some polyurethane. In general, I'm telling you guys not to use a regular polyurethane. Use a matte finish, because if you make a regular carvings glossy, they look horrific. They look like there's like this cheap plastic on them. But if you like old furniture, or the way the furniture uses it, if there's no extra angles on there and you sit there and sand it for long enough, and on a small piece it's not that hard, you can put some layers on it. I ended up doing a much larger bird, which I gave to who's basically my father-in-law. We did the same thing. My girlfriend and I helped me do it, and there's a lot of work though, like to do the sanding. So, but again, the little bird, super fun. You basically get to do the whole thing. You don't need a bandsaw or anything. Just grab a little piece of wood and start shaping it. There's another old kind of weird half kind of this, these genres kind of mixed together. There's the acanthus and decorative wood stuff. This is getting into Celtic stuff mixed with the flower. And again, this is another piece of wood that was, it's not like basswood, it's something from some sort of pine or something. I have no idea what it is. Didn't carve out great, and it actually took me a long time to get the finish to look even halfway decent, and it still looks it looks better on film than it does in person, basically. You can see there how it's shiny. It's not actually that shiny in person, but you can see there why you don't want pieces to be shiny that aren't completely smooth, because they won't have, it looks like a frosted donut or something, I don't know. It just looks like you put cheap plastic on top. So, let's see here. What do we got next? So, there's also, there's all these kind of other genres, and there's whole cultures built around them of like, there's the cottonwood bark, and then there's also pine knots, which this guy, one of the few that I saved, because I sold a lot of pine knots when I was doing pine knots, where you kind of have to go out and find these. You can buy them, but if you find them and they're still a little bit, tiny bit moist, you can carve them by hand instead of just with power tools. You can see again here, the light is creating a gloss. Even though the gloss isn't really there, you can see why you wouldn't want that in reality, because it looks like it's filled with some sort of whatever. But again, if you look at it without that, the color, pine knots they can be really cool. At the same time, at some point, they're really hard to find, and some of them aren't good on the inside, and it can be a huge mess. So you have to find a good source for them, and then you have to deal with all of that. It is like a lot of other found wood, but I got a bunch of them, and at some point they were all rotted and there was like bugs in them, and I just kind of never went back to carving them. So, but yeah, there's a lot of cool shapes. What's her name? I think her name is Nancy Tuttle. She does really great pieces. She sells them on eBay. She's one of the few wood carvers that sells stuff on there. And this is another. This is actually inspired from a title piece that she did, like a bird. There's kind of only so many things you can do with pine knots, and if you can see that's what the pine knot kind of looked like in the beginning. Basically, the bird part is on the inside, and that's where basically the back, that part where it's pointing to, that was where the branch was, where it broke off, right? And that stuff around it is kind of the bark. And basically, pines have this specific. They have to be super strong right there, and also they have the sap in there, which kind of creates this like super hardened whatever. And basically, after you find them where the trees have rotted, and most of the tree will be gone, and those things will still be there, and you break them off, or they're just kind of sitting there, and all the trees rotted around them. And Tuttle, I think, was saying that she actually finds hers. They've gone into the ocean and are washed up after storms, so they're even kind of a different, more like weathered look to them. But I believe she was saying that she does hers with like all power tools. You have to be like high power, like dental tools and stuff. And so the other one after pine knots is okay, all right. Well, there's a ball and cage there. Getting into the whittler's puzzles. I'll show you guys the other one later. It's the cypress knees. It's kind of this other with the pine knots and the cottonwood bark. Kind of these weird other things that you carve that aren't just wood. Again, so I may do a video of this at some point. Plenty of people have done it before, of the ball and cage. Basically, do a larger one if you're having a hard time with it. And the secret is that you leave that ball connected in the top and bottom in the middle until you're absolutely done. Otherwise, you can't get to it. Unless if you make it large enough, anytime you're having a problem with a little whittler's piece, think of it being large enough that you could go inside there, walk inside there, and you could carve in there. So you make your piece larger so you can do that. Like in this situation, like actually I cut that ball off too early, and it was big enough that I could put my fingers in there through the cage and hold it, which is kind of cheating, but whatever. I think I've done a lot of other balls and cages, but they've kind of whatever. So this is another little area of carving, of relief carving, and you just do a little bit, and it works really good with the process, the glazing / antiquing process, where you don't even have to go as deep as this. You can just make cuts that aren't even V cuts, and the wax or the glaze will stay in whatever you're using, and that's really fun. There's like a random piece. I think this is again the clear pine that's from wherever, and it's just kind of random shape. And as long as you're going with the grain, you can cut out the piece pretty well, or you split it. And I think the most I'll use in general is like a sawzall. It's like this medium-sized sawzall. In the early years, I just had to use a jigsaw. So you can use that to cut across the grain in some situations if you need to. That's also how I would cut stuff when I'm finding wood out at the parks and stuff. So there's a little Jesus and little arms, or cross, I guess. Very early attempt. You see his head is messed up and there's no neck or whatever. But again, you would deal with that. You wouldn't have the arms out because it would take such a huge piece. This is a little weird piece here, which I can't quite get in the frame. Never did quite finish it. I wasn't sure if it really made sense there. It's a London plane tree / sycamore, and it's got these like burls / knots on it, but I don't know what's going on with it. A lot of projects, I'll just abandon, and if I don't have the energy ever to go back to it, that's fine. Because if you put too much pressure on yourself, there's another whatever. You got some Celtic knot or ropage going around there. I was actually going in, so I keep jumping around. You can see in there, these little right in there. It's like that texture. So when they would do these, and they would have a lot of background that was flat, what they would do is they would have these little stamps that were textured. They were like if you've seen guys who do leather work, they have those little like textured things. So they have these little textured ones that would hammer in all the whole back where it would be flat, so they wouldn't have to have anything there. Because when you do a coat of arms, a lot of times there isn't anything, and it looks better to have the background textured so that it'll take on the stain, so the other stuff will pop out, the foreground will pop out. Get another piece of like sugar / clear pine, whatever it's called, white pine. And it's yeah. Although that stuff is cheap, the cross grain and trying to get all the little chunks out is just horrible. So this is an old piece that is one of the very few. I did a lot of kind of Guadalupe / whatever this is. It's kind of when you're doing full body. I've talked about this before. It's you want to have the limbs inside. If you don't, you have to start adding wood, or you have to have a huge piece of wood. So there's these certain designs of wizards, guys in robes, that work really well with just having a thin piece of wood and not a lot of power tools. Or if it's very specifically like this is a cypress knee, where there is no other space to go. You just kind of can design that in there. And so I don't know. At some point, I think I did a lot more cypress knees. These cypress knees are interesting as well, like the pine knots. You've all seen them before. You just maybe don't know what the word is. It's like they're what stick up in marshes and bogs or whatever. Like mostly down in Louisiana. There's a guy where I did just made a little bit of hands, kind of screwed them. The hands are one piece, and he has a cane that's one piece, and just to try to see what would happen. Now that's kind of based off of a Sean Siepa thing, where even he was just using regular basswood, but he was cutting out a piece that was kind of shaped, and then so he would have the hands separate. Now he was painting his pieces so it would mix better. You can't really tell in this, but the hands don't look naturally like they're there, and because I wasn't painting it, like it's not a clean. You can see the hole there, which I don't know. On film now I'm looking at it, looks kind of romantic, but he looks a little bit weird. But it's a way to have again a easy shape, and then just kind of basic little bit of extra wood to make him look like he has a full body, or there's extra something going on there. And this cane is a version of the hollow spiral, but it's actually not a hollow one. It's a single one that's wrapped around a pole. So yeah, he has yet to break, but I kind of attached all this stuff properly. I tried to do Abraham Lincoln. I'm like trying to show him in different lights. He looks like a very angry, like, I don't know, Titanic Abraham Lincoln. But I swear in real life, he looks like it dead on. Never mind. So what else we got here? This is a larger guy. I think this is I think he's a piece of cottonwood or clear pine. So I couldn't get very detailed on him, but just kind of went with it and stayed with that. There's a guy I haven't finished yet. There's a lot of big pieces that I never really finished, but there's still hope for this guy. He's based off a really old design, kind of, but I saw the picture in somewhere and I never could find it again, so I have no idea how close I am to the original. But I basically, the only thing about him that was special was that his hat was really long. He had this really long, like, this guy looks like a gnome or whatever, but he was like holding some stuff. Which again, it's like you put the arms in tight, so you don't have to deal with them. You don't have the extra wood, or if you want the arms to stick out, you got to make the body smaller, or you have to have more wood, or you have to glue on extra pieces of wood. So this is another big piece, which again, kind of really finished, but it's like based off of it's like a canvas thing. It's based off this like kind of design that they would use for like ship heads or whatever, or whatever they call them. They didn't always have people up there or a head up there. They just called it like a ship head, and maybe I don't know which one came first, calling it a ship head or having actual heads or bodies up at the front of the ship. But a lot of times it would just be like they would have a canvas and design work all over the boat, and then there would just be like a major piece at the front, and then at some point. I guess they started having actual people. Oh, and we've set that down. So yeah, and that's one of well, okay, this right here, what you're looking at right here. This is another thing I hope to do a video on that I found in some libraries somewhere. This is some tramp art. Guys used to do these all different. They do it on frames, they do it on dressers, all kinds of huge stuff. It took forever to do it on this little small one. I built a box myself because it needs to be flat, but basically these guys used to use like cigar boxes. You can't do it anymore because the cigar boxes are like plywood, but you can use fruit boxes. That's the nicest of cigar boxes, is if they're real wood, they're plywood if you get in there. So you may be able to actually make it on one. The original box doesn't have to be solid, but the layers afterwards do. So I found some fruit boxes that will do that, but there's also most of the craft stores will sell different widths of very thin basswood. They also sell balsa, but you don't want to use that. But they'll sell basswood and these thin layers, and you can use that. And basically, you're making layers that all have these little, nooks on each of the edges, and then you layer each one up. Each layer is smaller and smaller. A lot of people confuse this with chip carving. I guess it is kind of a chip carving, but it really isn't. It just kind of looks like it after it's done. It's one of these things that's so ugly that it's cool, and nobody really knows about it. And there's apparently a lot of people that are like super big collectors of it. Again, people do like huge ones. I don't know how they would get the time to do them, but I guess, back before TV was around, you'd have to have something to do with your time when you got home from work. And again, inside there's that little hollow spiral guy I made a video of. Building your own box is super hard, by the way. Even if it's small, it turns out to be like ridiculously hard. Getting the hinges that are the right size, getting them to fit, and then like all this stuff lining up so it's not wonky, it's like a mess. So I'd suggest trying to find a box. Again, I'll try to do a video on that stuff. So okay, so next up is a project I've had a lot of fun with over the years, and that is whittling a skeleton key. I only have two here to show you, but I've done a whole lot of them. The one on the right one there is one I wear. These are both out of walnut. I've done out of some other things. I'll do a tutorial eventually, but also trying to get a thing into Woodcarving magazine. Anyway, this one's actually been put into a rock tumbler. You can do that with really small pieces of wood and get them really like kind of bottom of the ocean look. But they end up looking like that anyway if you wear them long enough. So this is another little piece. That little silver house is piece that my girlfriend made. Amy, it's a piece of silver clay actually, which is just silver particles put in sort of clay stuff, and you can shape it, and then you fire it in a clay kiln, and then just kind of bonds together, and you have this silver piece. So it's kind of made this little weird piece there. You can see the epoxy shining in this one. Didn't even do a really nice job. So I'm trying to make some more that are nicer because I think the contrast is really nice. But anyway, so you can do just another thing. You can make little small pieces of jewelry, and also just like a key or something with a leather strap. It's kind of manly. It's also a reference to a Stephen King book, one of his weirder ones there, the Dark Tower series, which I enjoyed the first few, but not the last few. So anyway, it was just cute. It's like, you don't see a wood carving that often in popular media, and there was this wood carving on it, so I did it, and I ended up really liking it. So anyway, that and skeleton keys have gotten popular, and they're one of my favorite knife maker's marks. So I'm also showing some wooden spoons, at least the ones that I use. This has been an incredible amount of my time carving. It's been making spoons, learning how to make them, using a hatchet and all that. That's all. Also, doing found wood stuff because it's too expensive to do it any other way. A lot of these are walnut, as you can see. The other ones are London plane. Both of those are kind of become my go-to woods. I had some European beech wood around. I really like that for the cooking spoons and stuff. And I like the sycamore and the walnut are kind of better for the eating spoons. Sycamore and London plane are best for eating spoons. They're a little bit soft for the cooking spoons. Okay, towards the end of this video, it's starting to get late, and the filming starts to get sketchy because I'm like, oh, I forgot all this and this. These are kind of some newer guys in general. And I think most of these guys have a video on them. The little guy with the pipe there. Again, I think all of them either they have videos on them or they've been in a video. So this guy, we'll go put him in the light there. And then this lady, which I don't think you've seen in that little piece, we'll go put in front of the light. This lady was I saw her somewhere. I don't know what she was, like some famous piece or something. And I didn't get anywhere close to what she actually looks like, but whatever. This is a very early, but one of the more successful kind of again swirly acanthus design things. It's gonna sanded it down more. That's what you should probably be aiming for if you try those, instead of the random shape weird ones that I did. Again, it's just a grab bag size bass. I'm losing it here. Okay, this guy's kind of interesting. He's we'll get a little closer look at him there, and better lighting. Very early piece, and he's on a little pedestal, but that's it. This is again another little sycamore piece that had some burl knots on it, and then so this twig that's going up, I cut it so that it's like looking like it's coming out of there, but this is the natural shape and curve of that branch, and so I also only put the finish on that one, so it really looks like it's coming out of that. Nobody likes this piece, but I know that some of you whittler guys think that's fun. He looks like a weird slug coming out of there, but I did it on some other piece too, where there was this old time there where I was experimenting with putting finish on a part of a piece and not on the other parts. Like you can put it on the eyes and have it glossy and not on another piece. This is a piece of like a piece of wood that I found at the beach, like super rotted. I was actually able to get some pieces out of them, but again, going from the set, the shape that this the curve had, and then getting out this kind of overly whatever piece. There's no way to hang him or anything else, so it's just kind of a lost cause. But again, it's kind of fun. So another reason why I shot the video. Lost cause pieces. So here's some other spirits. These are mostly dual D-ring on the back of these guys. You can just hang them up. A lot of these, like this guy's, like they're light enough that you can just kind of put them on the wall with a tack or a very light little screw. Most people just have drywall now. You don't need to go through like doing all this crazy hanging stuff and doing the drywall screws and everything. You just kind of anything you get to stick in the wall. Oh, there's another knot, I guess. Smaller pine knot. Got more of a beard there. This piece of London plane where I left the chainsaw. That's what those lines are on the bottom. Just kind of left that instead of bringing his beard down, and also it's just kind of the shape of what he was. So it's instead of leaving the natural state of the wood, there's sometimes these natural shapes you'll get when you're taking it apart that you'll all leave. I think it's interesting to work with. Little tiki man type of guy. He's not tiki. He's like more like Stonehenge or whatever. He's a really big fish. So again, doing a big fish, you can use like a thin piece of crappy wood. And I did I don't know if you can really see it. You can see how old this wood is. Again, the fish doesn't need a lot of cross-grained stuff, and so you can get away with kind of crappy wood or whatever, as long as it's just thin. There's another little, again, design piece. And you can find pieces, basically, any of these you can find. You just find stuff online and you print it, or however, put it on, glue it on, or just draw it onto the block and then just start tracing it. There's another one in cedar, the western red cedar. And you can see that I'm kind of using it blends from red to white, and I kind of use that part of the design. This was some kind of weird elm or something, actually. I got from some park in a storm. You can see the end there is actually kind of not done well, but still an interesting example. And you can see there's different colors on that one. It's just kind of I forget what that was. It's not walnut though. It had a dark heartwood and then a lighter sapwood like walnut, but I still have some of it. It's like much harder though. I don't know what the hell it is. So Yeah, they're really fun. I kind of think maybe I should go back into them sometimes. And again, these are like the fish. You do them really thin, and then you can easily shape them, to this kind of basic shape. So you can have negative space. Basically, that's what you can't get in when you're doing faces and all these other things. So this is one of the block prints. This is like an actual print of it. I don't have a whole lot of them around. You can see the S's are backwards because when you have to write the letters out, you have to do them backwards so that they'll print the right way, and I didn't always do that. So anyway, you can see how fun they are when they print out, and I did a lot of those, and a lot of them well, I'm not gonna say why I did them, but if you ever go to New York you may see one. So anyway, I think that's about it. Hope you guys had some fun. Maybe you were inspired by something. Let me know if there's anything you want more information on, a picture of, or if you just want help with a design or something. You can definitely get into that. So, yeah. Alright, take care, guys. Drive safe. Bye.